What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy with Trading Decoded. It is 3:40 in the afternoon. I know. The market is not closed. So what are you doing on the microphone making a video, Jimmy? Well, we're gearing towards shortening our days up a little bit simply because, well, we're trying to get comfortable with the idea that we can make the money we need to make and pay our bills in half a workday. That's not always the case, and it's not always easy, and it's not ideal for everybody, but that's the way I trade. And after 12 o'clock, which is when my lunchtime is, and I come back from lunch, there's very little in the way of trades that I'm interested in, mainly because we have tons of different support resistance levels. A lot of times volume has dropped, all the things that I talk about in these videos all the time. You've probably also noticed that I haven't made a video in a few days, and that's simply because I just don't feel like it. I do these videos every single day to recap what we were looking for, what we were doing, why we did the things that we did. And I know that they're helpful sometimes, but if you've watched any of my videos, you probably hear a lot of the same. It feels like I'm saying a lot of the same in these videos, but it is what it is. I did have a red day this past Friday to the tune of $3,650-ish. I became a hold and hoper. That's unfortunate. It does happen from time to time. So there's that. Just to keep you updated. I don't do videos on Fridays anyway, but just to let you guys know that I do lose sometimes as well. But with that said, today we found a nice trade in the morning, and then we found one to the upside a little bit later. And then I went to lunch, and then everybody was done trading for the day. Right now we have a 4-to-1 win-loss ratio, which is amazing because it was very easy today to be impatient. I think my entry on the trade that I took was a little bit impatient, but I waited for what I wanted to see. I made this abundantly clear to everybody. I didn't take a trade in the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes even. But when I did take the trade, I felt good about it. And fortunately, it did what I wanted it to do. But let's go ahead and look at what we did and see how it worked out. So in the morning, as you guys know, we had CPI this morning, which basically came in exactly as expected. So I didn't start my charting until after this thing started to settle down a little bit or create some levels up here after the 8:30 candle. And we quickly topped out and then started to pull back. So naturally, because we're pulling back with lower highs, I'm looking more for puts than calls. Doesn't mean that we expect the market to dump or anything like that. I had a call line at 597.88. Told everybody if we can get above that line and the Qs are above their pre-market low line right here, calls are on the table for me. Until that happens, I'm looking for puts. My put line was below 596.68 or 596.98, so basically 597. We want to get below that whole number. And ideally, we'd like to see the Qs trending down. We'd like to see ADD trending down, which we got. So that's ultimately the reason we got into these puts. Now, I entered this trade at 948 near the bottom of this. I wanted to see SPY and Qs break through this support. And I was just hoping that the SPY was going to make it down to this dotted line. That was my initial hope. I liked the fact that ADD was trending down. I liked the fact, although it was very slow, that the Qs were trending down. It started to pick up pace a little bit later, which was awesome. And I told everybody, I said, guys, if the Qs could get below this support down here, I think I'm going to go for it. Okay. This support right here at 511 or 512.13, I think I'm going to go for it. And I went for it. And we went down, and then it became, well, Jimmy, where would you cut the trade if you don't take your profits when we get to this line or whatever the case is, right? I was really hoping we were going to make it all the way down to this yellow line. I had an alert set there and everything, but I couldn't hold on because I put a mechanical stop in place once we started to struggle to make it through this orange line. And I told everybody, guys, if you're holding on to your puts, you absolutely need to make sure that the Qs stay below this resistance right here, okay? This one right here. We need to stay below that. If the Qs get back above it, we should expect that they're going to run back up. That would almost definitely take you out of this trade to the upside on SPY. old support turned into resistance, thankfully, for the people who were staying in this trade. Plus, we were getting close to 10 o'clock, which is not something we like to hold through. A lot of these folks did, and they got fortunate. So for me, I got in on this candle and I got out, mechanically stopped out of this candle here. Ended up being about a 30% win. So I wasn't upset. That was a nice win for me. The charts have been a little weird ever since the election, and SPY, Qs, and ADD are kind of doing funky things. So been a little hesitant, trying to be a little bit more patient, trying to figure out if I need to change or massage the way that I look at the Qs to take my entries and my exits. Fortunately today, Qs and ADD snapped into shape, playing with each other nicely after a little while, and that gave us the confidence to take these puts. Now, because I felt myself, I had to set an alert down here on this line. This is really where I wanted it to go. And I told everybody, I said, guys, I think if we can get below the support, we're likely to head down to that line there. The problem that I have with myself, and this is a me problem, is that when I put a thought like that in my head and I stayed in this trade, if this would have never stopped and just kept going up, I would still be holding those puts. This is what happened to me on Friday. I had the opportunity to get out of my trade on Friday several times with a small profit, small being almost my daily goal, break even several times. Meanwhile, I was telling everybody else they should probably get out of the trade because it's not looking good for going in our direction. But I didn't. And I didn't stop out where I was supposed to, and I just let it become a hold and hope. The community members in our room are well aware of it. I make it very aware. I try and use my failures and my weaknesses as learning lessons when that happens. And Friday was no different. But because I started to feel the same way I felt on Friday, meaning I was going to hold this trade until we hit this line down here, this yellow line, or I was never going to get out of the trade until it did. When I start to feel that way, I instantly put in a mechanical stop. I was talking about putting in a mechanical stop because we were struggling to move lower here, and Qs had gotten right back above the support that they broke because I wanted the Qs to come down to this line, right? Similar line as we had on SPY, the next line down for Qs. It did. It just did so in a roundabout way. Okay, so this was an uncomfortable pullback on the Qs. Fortunately, because ADD was going down, it didn't make a crazy reversal back to the high of day on SPY. ADD kept SPY kind of at bay, and then finally the 10 o'clock candle kicked us down significantly. But we did get down to that line ultimately. Would have been very uncomfortable to hold through all this. So because I got in and I was able to get out with beyond my profit target for the day, and I felt good about the trade, and I took the trade out of my control by putting a mechanical stop because I was afraid of what I might do if I didn't have a mechanical stop and it reversed on me. With that said, we did have several people hold that trade all the way down to this line, and all the way down to here. Now, you might be asking, Jimmy, why do you have an exit down there? Again, guys, we look at these lines all the time on the Qs. The Qs was hitting support at 10.06. Qs was hitting support at 10.07. What we don't know is which one of those supports is going to stop SPY from moving. Okay? Moving down. We don't know if it's going to be the end of the day, the low of day, if it's going to bounce and make a new all-time highs. We don't know. Okay. What we do know is that at some point, every move stops somewhere. Okay. So just be prepared. You could stay in this trade, but move your stops down, trail your wins, and let it do what it's going to do. So even though I got out here, several people made it down to the line we were originally aiming for. Several made it down even lower, and several stopped out on this green candle, which they caught the majority of this trade. It was a great trade. Bounced off of the Qs support down here. Okay. And then we started to chop. Now, today was a little uneasy. And again, I wasn't looking for calls in a hurry. And it's not that I didn't believe the market could go up, but by this time, when we opened this morning, the majority of the top 10 was green. And by the time we got down here, almost all of the top 10 was red. So I wasn't in a hurry to go counter trend trading. Yes, we could see we're putting in higher lows. And yes, there were people who bought puts here. We called out this higher low in relation to, because when we hit resistance here, we were hoping it was going to come right back down to the support. The minute it didn't, you got to watch out. This is a higher low. If you're in those puts, you might want to get out with a small profit, a small loss, or a break even. But if you wait, higher lows are bad for puts. Now, I know we are trending down still technically, but you could call this a wedge if you really wanted to. Okay, so we were wedging that way, down, and you could say here or here. Either way, you don't want to get into a trade while you're in this wedge. Why? Because we don't know which way it's going to go. Now, what if it breaks the wedge to the upside, Jimmy? Would you buy calls here? No, I wouldn't. Why? Well, because if we break this wedge to the upside and you look left, where is your next resistance? Well, it's right here. So if you get in here and you hold resistance here, is that worth the risk? No. And if you wait for it to get above this resistance, it's going to get to the next one. Is that worth the risk? No. Well, what if we get above this resistance and it makes it to the next resistance? Is that worth the risk? No. So all I'm doing is looking left. Now, you would look at this move and you say, but Jimmy, we made it through the wedge and all the way up to this resistance. Yes, we did. You didn't know it until it happened. So if you're going to play that way, just know where your moves may slow down or stop so that you can be prepared in the event that they do. As long as it's putting in higher lows, you don't want to be looking for puts. And it did break the wedge to the upside. It did get through several resistance levels to make it all the way up to this one. And it struggled there. Okay. Now, as we were moving up, I had told everybody, basically on the Qs, I said, guys, if the Qs can get above this orange line right here, I'd be interested in calls up to, well, at least this area of resistance. So originally we were looking for a close above this line to get us to here. If we get above that, we're looking for here. If we get above that, we're looking for here, and so on and so forth. It's just looking left. Well, 1125, we cleared that line. And at 1129, we got to that line on the Qs. Okay, so not a huge move, but, and I know you look at this and you say, Jimmy, you left so much money on the table. No, I did, but I also didn't take a trade until I was comfortable doing it. I think everybody should follow similar rules to that. You don't have to take the trade the same reasons that I do. Now, I didn't take this trade. I took my one and done here. And yes, I left a bunch of money on the table, but the trade I took was comfortable for me. And I was happy with the rewards that trade gave me. So I didn't push my luck. Okay, I'm not interested in trying to make the most out of every trade. I want to get the most comfortable part of every trade that I take so that I feel good about what I'm doing, right? I don't like to hesitate. I don't like to be afraid to pull the trigger on these trades. It's just not a good thing, right? Shortly thereafter, we went to lunch right around 12 o'clock. So we were stuck at the resistance up here, but putting in higher lows. And right before I left, I told everybody, guys, I wouldn't be looking for puts. This is a wedge up to resistance. Usually this wedge breaks high, not low. Higher lows, bad for puts. And lo and behold, shortly before I left for lunch, it breaks through, runs right up to the next resistance. Did close above that resistance, but didn't go any higher at that point. Now, I was gone at this point already, but what was going on at 12:10? Well, Qs were hitting resistance as well, so we don't like to get into trades when they're both at support or at resistance levels. Went for lunch, and then I came back, and it was kind of just chopping sideways in this area here. It came back right around 115. And everybody called it a day and left. Of course, after we leave, we start to trend down. And she's starting to move a little bit now. But the top 10 is still a mix of red and green. ADD, I think, is still trending down. Okay. Yeah, That's pretty much it. Where do we land for the day? I have no idea. If we end up getting below this orange dotted line, I wouldn't be surprised if we head down to 596.10 to follow that. So we can put an alert there and see if that actually gets hit. Let's take a look here. So let's see if we get below that orange dotted line. Let's take a look at what Qs are doing. Are they sitting on support? No, Qs just broke support. And ADD is still trying to print red. So my belief is that we come down to this line here. Or to the SPY or to the Q's next line of support, which is it? Yeah, should be that orange dotted line there. No guarantees, but this is the type of stuff that we look for. So we're coming off lower highs. We're trying to close below support. If we do, we believe that SPY is likely to make it down to the next support. I really don't know what's holding SPY up because ADD is aggressively selling off right now and Q's are printing red, which is interesting. Here we go. So what you'd be open for is that this thing continues down to the next support, either on the Qs or on the SPY. But I'm not going to sit here and wait it out. We'll just have to see if that ends up being the case sooner than later. Now, the problem with taking a trade this late in the day is that if this thing even pulls back to where this candle started, you're giving up a fair amount of your ground. So these late day trades, same day expirations, you need this move to happen pretty quickly. Okay. But, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. If not, I'm not in it, so it doesn't matter. But if somebody is out there and you're trying to trade this late in the day, I would highly recommend that you move to next day expirations. Okay. These types of trades work great when they happen or resolve quickly this late in the day. In fact, contracts are pretty cheap at this point in time. And man, if that would have taken a minute to get down to this next line, this 596.10, you would have gotten paid handsomely. But since it's taking its sweet time to do it, this becomes not only uncomfortable because theta's ramped up to 11 at this point, you're fluctuating between break even and losing, and it's not a comfortable thing. But with that said, we're going to wrap it up. I hope you found some useful information in this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to join our Discord community, well, we'd love to have you. There is a link down below. Qs didn't make it down. SPY didn't make it down. And that would have been a shit eater. But it's exactly why I don't trade late in the day. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you did well today. Till tomorrow, I love you guys. See you.